The battlefield stretched across entire continents, scorched and scared from years of relentless alien bombardments. Human cities had turned into smoldering ruins, and the land itself was war-torn, abandoned or overrun by the alien invaders. The alien forces, a vast collective of technologically superior species, moved across Earth like a tidal wave, crushing everything in their path. Humanity's once thriving colonies across the galaxy have fallen one by one, their survivors either enslaved or exterminated in the wake of the alien assault. Earth, the last bastion of resistance, was all that remained of the human presence in the galaxy. In the remains of New York City, now a crumbling shadow of its former glory, human forces huddled underground, only emerging at night to scout and strike against the alien occupation. They were few in number, ragged and outgunned, yet they fought with a ferocity born of desperation. Their leaders knew that the war was already lost. Earth's population was on the brink of extinction, and the last of the human military's elite forces had already been decimated in failed counterattacks. Hope had become a rare, flickering flame, a thought whispered only in dark corners, too afraid to speak it aloud. On the surface, the aliens patrolled mercilessly, enforcing a curfew of death. Their forces were nearly infinite in number, advanced in both biological and technological warfare. Their ships blotted out the sky, casting the planet into perpetual shadow. Their weapons made short work of any human resistance, and their brutal tactics left no room for negotiation. Entire cities were wiped off the map in mere hours. And yet, despite all the destruction, the human spirit endured. Every now and then, survivors would regroup, striking the invaders where they were least prepared, causing enough damage to remind the aliens that the humans weren't going to go down without a fight. In an underground bunker deep beneath the ruins of what was once Washington, D.C., the high command of the human resistance sat in grim silence. General Mira Harrison, the leader of humanity's last organized military unit, gazed over the bleak situation reports sprawled across the table in front of her. Her face was weary, but her eyes still held a spark of determination. She scanned the faces of the other officers present, their expressions just as fatigued, their shoulders heavy with the burden of impossible decisions. "We're running out of time," General Harrison spoke, her voice low but firm. "The aliens are preparing for their final assault on our last stronghold. If they succeed, we're finished. Earth is finished." Her word hung in the air, the weight of them crushing the room into a tense silence. A lieutenant, barely out of his teens, looked at her with fear in his eyes. "What's left for us to do, General?" he asked, his voice shaking. "We've lost every battle, every city. What can we possibly?" "We keep fighting," Harrison cut him off, her tone sharp. "We don't have a choice. If we can just hold them off for a little longer, maybe someone will hear our calls. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get the reinforcements we need. But until then, we do what we've always done. We survive." She stood from the table and moved toward the wall, where a holographic map of Earth glowed faintly in the dim light. The alien fleet was closing in, their invasion complete. The remaining human forces were concentrated in a few scattered bunkers, their numbers dwindling by the day. As she stared at the map, her thoughts were interrupted by a sharp beep from her communicator. Everyone's eyes turned toward her as she activated the screen. A message blinked on the monitor, the text so brief it seemed almost absurd. "Reinforcements are coming. Hold on." The room fell into a stunned silence. Everyone knew that help was unlikely. Every message of hope sent in the past had been a false lead, a desperate plea ignored by the universe. The enemy was too powerful, the situation too dire. But in the midst of all the hopelessness, that simple message sparked something deep within each person present. It was an ember of possibility, a sliver of hope. General Harrison's eyes narrowed as she read the message again. She knew the chances were slim that the message was legitimate. But with the alien forces breathing down their necks, what choice did they have? "Tell everyone to prepare for a final stand," she ordered, her voice steady but urgent. "We're not giving up. Not yet." As the officers filed out to carry out their orders, Harrison lingered by the map, her heart racing with the possibility that someone, might be coming to their aid. But part of her, a small, fearful part, knew better. They were on their own. They had always been on their own. But one thing was certain. They weren't going down without a fight. The next few days were nothing short of hellish. Every movement, every decision felt like it could be their last. General Harrison and her officers pored over maps, re-evaluating their meager resources and adjusting their strategies for the inevitable alien push. The walls of their underground command center had begun to close in, the oppressive silence punctuated only by the hum of computers and the occasional whispered conversation. Everyone was on edge, waiting for the inevitable end. Yet in the midst of this darkness, the message from the mysterious sender lingered in their minds. "Reinforcements are coming. Hold on." It was just words, unverified, unsubstantiated, but in the depths of their despair, it felt like something more. A thread of hope, fragile as it was, held everyone together. But there was no telling if it was real or another cruel false hope, like so many before it. General Harrison paced the small space, unable to shake the feeling of uncertainty gnawing at her. Could someone, anyone, actually come to their aid? Earth's allies had been decimated, and their distress signals had fallen on deaf ears for months. She looked over at her communications officer, Lieutenant Karen Novak, who sat hunched over a console, fingers flying over the keys as she desperately searched for something. Anything that might confirm the message's authenticity. "Anything?" Harrison asked, her voice tinged with exhaustion. Novak looked up, eyes tired but focused. "Nothing, General. No other transmissions, no sign of any ships or reinforcements." She paused, as if considering her next words carefully. "It's just a message. That's all we've got." Harrison nodded grimly, her heart sinking. She couldn't blame Novak. After everything they'd been through, there was little reason to trust in empty promises. Still, she wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Not when they were this close to losing everything. "I know," Harrison replied, her tone sharp. "But we have to hold on. We're not done fighting." Her words were a rallying cry. The small, scrappy group of soldiers under her command needed to believe in something. Anything that could turn the tide. They couldn't afford to lose their resolve. Their families, their homes, their entire way of life depended on it. The next day, the human resistance made their final preparations. Earth's remaining military assets, scrappy remnants of what had once been a vast force, took their positions in the crumbling cities, preparing for the inevitable. The alien fleet had already begun to encircle the planet, and the human defense was all but non-existent. What little ground they held was quickly being encroached upon by the unstoppable alien army. General Harrison moved from position to position, visiting the various units that had been pieced together over the past months. Some soldiers were barely old enough to fight. Others were hardened veterans who had seen the worst of the war. But all of them shared the same look, a deep, unspoken fear mixed with a stubborn resolve to survive. She approached a group of young soldiers stationed near a crumbling city wall, their weapons ready but their eyes scanning the skies in terror. "You ready for this?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. One of the soldiers, a boy no older than 17, looked up with wide eyes. "We don't have a choice, ma'am. But I don't think we'll make it." Harrison's gaze softened as she placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're wrong. You've got more strength in you than any alien soldier I've ever seen." She gave him a small smile. "Just hold on. We'll fight until the last breath." The soldier nodded, a flicker of something like hope passing through his expression. As Harrison walked away, she didn't feel the warmth of that same hope she tried to inspire. The walls of the bunker, the defeat in their eyes. It was all too much. But she had to keep the illusion alive. For them. For the soldiers who still needed to believe that they had a chance. Later that evening, just before dusk, Harrison stood once more in front of the map, studying the incoming alien fleet. The darkness of the night sky was punctuated by the ominous shadows of alien ships overhead. She knew the final battle was coming soon. The moment of reckoning was inevitable, and no matter what, Earth would fall. But what if, just what if, there was something more to the message? A faint hum echoed through the command center, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Novak, staring at the communication console with wide eyes. "General, I think it's them." Harrison's heart skipped a beat as she moved toward the screen. A series of coded symbols flashed on the console, followed by a single, unmistakable message. "We're here." It was brief. It was simple. But this time, Harrison didn't hesitate. "We hold the line. Reinforcements are here," she said, her voice louder now, carrying the weight of the realization that they weren't as alone as they had thought. The night was thick with tension as the alien fleet loomed overhead. The distant hum of the massive ships was almost drowned out by the sound of nervous footsteps and whispered prayers among the human resistance. The remnants of Earth's last military forces held their positions, every soldier tense, every weapon aimed at the sky. They had been preparing for this moment for weeks, but now that it was upon them, doubt began to creep in. Could they really hold off the inevitable alien assault? General Harrison stood at the front of the command center, her eyes focused on the map once again. The symbols marking the alien ships had grown closer, their encirclement tightening. They had only hours left, maybe less. If reinforcements didn't arrive soon, it would be too late. Her stomach churned with anxiety, but she refused to let it show. She couldn't afford to. "General." Novik's voice broke through her thoughts. "There's something on the radar. It's moving fast." Harrison's breath caught in her throat. She turned to face the screen, but the image was still too fuzzy to make out any specifics. But then, a sudden pulse of light shot across the sky. A blinding flash, so bright it nearly overwhelmed the monitors. For a split second, the alien ships paused, their sensors unable to process what had just appeared. The human forces below looked up in awe. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. A new fleet, small but compact, appeared almost out of nowhere, cutting through the alien formation with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. The vessels gleamed with a strange, unfamiliar light. They were unlike any human ships, far more advanced than anything Earth had built, but not as grand or imposing as the alien warships. They were sleek, agile, and fast, designed for one thing: to fight. Harrison's mind raced. Who were these people? The ship's designs were nothing like the reinforcements they had been promised. They weren't the fleet of Earth's allies, nor were they anything from humanity's own forces. The ships had no markings, no symbols, only a strange, almost unsettling sense of purpose. They didn't come in force to negotiate. They came to destroy. The first explosion hit just as Harrison's thoughts crystallized. The unfamiliar ships opened fire, their energy blasts striking alien warships with pinpoint accuracy. The aliens, caught off guard, tried to retaliate, but the new fleet was too fast. Their weapons fired in quick succession, slamming into the alien hulls with force and precision that left the invaders reeling. The massive alien ships shook under the barrage, their shields flickering as they tried to recover from the surprise assault. "What the hell is going on?" Novak whispered in disbelief. "Who are they?" Harrison didn't know, but there was no time to waste on questions. She watched the skies with growing amazement as the alien fleet faltered. The humans in the underground bunkers erupted into shouts of joy, their eyes glued to the sight of the once unstoppable invaders now being forced back. It was an impossible dream, unfolding right before their eyes. The human forces, reinvigorated by the unexpected help, quickly mobilized. They began to push forward, attacking alien ground forces that had been previously unstoppable. The guerrilla tactics they had used for so long now felt less like mere survival and more like a true counteroffensive. Human soldiers, their resolve reignited by the arrival of these new warriors, fought with a new energy. They struck at weak points in the alien defenses, exploiting every vulnerability. But even as the humans pressed their advantage, the mysterious ships continued to wreak havoc in the skies. Their movements were almost too fast to follow, darting through alien formations with ease. The alien forces had no chance to regroup, and their morale was shattered with every blow the mysterious fleet landed. Harrison watched, her heart racing, as the alien ships began to break apart, like a wounded animal retreating into the shadows. Then something more unsettling happened. The mysterious ships began to land, their engines purring with a low, almost ominous hum. Small dropships, loaded with soldiers, descended from the fleet, their cargo bay doors opening to reveal figures clad in black, angular armor. The human resistance had fought for so long, had faced so much adversity, but now their saviors had arrived. The soldiers disembarked without ceremony, their steps purposeful, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. General Harrison's heart sank. These weren't just reinforcements. These were warriors. They moved like shadows, fast, precise, and efficient. Each soldier was a machine of war, their weapons devastatingly effective, their tactics flawless. They didn't hesitate, didn't falter. As they tore through the alien lines with brutal efficiency, the human forces stood in awe. The strange soldiers were relentless, as if they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. "What are they?" Lieutenant Novak asked breathlessly, her voice thick with awe and fear. Harrison watched, her thoughts racing. She didn't know who they were or where they came from. But one thing was certain. They weren't here to negotiate or liberate. They were here to win. And humanity, for the first time in years, finally had a fighting chance. The strange soldiers, clad in black, angular armor, moved with deadly precision, cutting through the alien forces as if they were mere practice dummies. Their weapons, sleek and silent, unleashed devastating energy blasts, each one obliterating alien combatants with ruthless efficiency. The human resistance watched in awe, their morale soaring as they witnessed these new warriors dismantle the enemy forces with ease. General Harrison stood at the front, her eyes locked on the battlefield as the new soldiers advanced, one step ahead of the humans they had just joined. Their movements were synchronized, almost choreographed, an unnerving display of discipline and lethality. As the humans took their cues from these mysterious reinforcements, they pushed harder, launching counterattacks at alien positions that had once seemed impenetrable. The alien forces, reeling from the unexpected assault, began to falter. Their formations broke apart as the mysterious fleet continued its barrage from the skies, striking down ships with devastating accuracy. The enemy soldiers, unable to regroup, became disorganized, their once unified front crumbling in the face of the unexpected onslaught. Harrison watched the scene unfold, a mix of disbelief and gratitude bubbling up inside her. Who were these people? Where did they come from? She couldn't answer the questions, but one thing was clear. They were saving Earth, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, humanity had hope. As the battle raged on, Harrison's thoughts were interrupted when one of the mysterious soldiers approached her. The figure moved with purpose, their helmeted face unreadable behind the black visor. They didn't speak immediately, instead observing the battlefield around them, their gaze sweeping over the human and alien forces alike. Harrison squared her shoulders, not knowing what to expect. After a long moment, the soldier finally spoke in a voice that was both low and commanding. "You're the leader of these survivors." The voice was distorted, almost mechanical, yet there was an undeniable authority in it. Harrison nodded, her voice steady. "Yes, I'm General Harrison. Who are you? And where did you come from?" The soldier's head tilted slightly, though the gesture was almost imperceptible beneath the black helmet. "We are the Wraithine," they replied, their tone betraying no emotion. "We've been watching your species for some time." "Watching?" Harrison's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" The soldier didn't elaborate immediately, instead glancing back at the battlefield. "This war is not the first you fought. Your people have faced extinction before, Yet you survive. You have a will that cannot be broken. We saw that. We came to ensure your survival." Harrison's mind raced as she processed the soldier's words. The Wraithine. She had never heard of them. But the way they spoke, as if this was something they had done before. This wasn't just the arrival of random reinforcements. This was an intervention. Before she could ask more questions, another soldier approached, this one holding a small device in their hand. The device emitted a low hum, and as the soldier activated it, a holographic map of Earth appeared, overlaid with various alien fleet positions. The map was detailed, showing the location of every alien ship, their movements, and weak points in their defenses. "These are your enemy's vulnerabilities," the second soldier said, pointing to the holographic map. "We have been monitoring their tactics. They are not invincible." Harrison looked at the map, her heart pounding in her chest. This was the information they needed, detailed, precise, and critical. The alien forces had always seemed unbeatable, their technology light years ahead of humanity's. But now, it seemed like the tide was turning. For the first time, there was a chance, an actual, real chance, that they could win this war. "Thank you," Harrison said, her voice thick with emotion. This is everything we needed." The Wraithine soldier gave a nod, their face hidden behind the helmet. "You are not alone in this fight. Your species has potential. We will help you unlock it." The words hung in the air, heavy with promise. For the first time in years, Harrison felt a spark of real hope. The Resistance, once so outmatched and desperate, now had allies, powerful allies. And as strange as it seemed, the arrival of the Wraithine was the spark that could ignite humanity's ultimate victory. "Let's finish this," Harrison said, her voice rising with newfound determination. "We have a war to win." The soldiers nodded in unison, and with that, they moved forward once again. The human forces followed, fueled by the hope of victory, as the mysterious warriors of the Wraithine led the charge. The alien forces, who had once seemed invincible, were now on the back foot. For the first time, the balance of power had shifted. The battlefield had become a chaotic symphony of destruction. Explosions echoed through the streets as alien ships crashed from the sky, their hulking forms burning as they plummeted to Earth. The human resistance, bolstered by the Wraithine and their deadly precision, fought with a ferocity they hadn't known in years. They were no longer just trying to survive. They were fighting for a future, for a chance to reclaim their world. But even as the humans made significant strides, the alien forces were far from defeated. Their commanders, though shaken by the unexpected assault, quickly regrouped. New tactics were being deployed, and their reinforcements, though slower to arrive, were steadily turning the tide of battle. The alien fleets were vast, their numbers seemingly endless. For every alien warship that fell, 2 more appeared in the sky. The humans, despite their newfound hope, could only hold their ground for so long. General Harrison stood at the forefront of the command center, observing the battle through the holographic map. She could see the alien ships regrouping, reinforcing their strongest points and pushing back with renewed aggression. The Wraithine, despite their formidable power, could only hold off so many enemies at once. The humans, though reinvigorated, were still outnumbered and outgunned. "General," Novik's voice broke through Harrison's thoughts. "The alien forces are massing for a final strike. We have minutes, maybe seconds, before they unleash everything they have." Harrison's mind raced. The Wraithine had given them invaluable intelligence, but they hadn't anticipated such a swift counterattack. The final wave of aliens, an overwhelming assault of elite ground forces, airships, and devastating artillery, was on the verge of breaking through the human defenses. "We can't stop them all," Harrison muttered, her hands clenched into fists. "There's too many." But just as the weight of despair began to settle in, a voice broke through, cold and authoritative. "Then you need to make them fear you." Harrison turned to see a figure standing behind her. The soldier was tall and broad, their helmet gleaming with dark intensity, the same black armor worn by the Raytheon. Unlike the others, this one exuded a sense of lethal purpose that was undeniable. They were not just warriors, they were hunters. "We've been watching your tactics," the soldier continued, their voice deep and calculated. "You fight like survivors. But to win this war, you must fight like conquerors." The soldier stepped forward, activating a small holographic device. It flickered to life, revealing a detailed schematic of the alien force's remaining positions. It was clear now that the alien fleet was planning a massive assault, a concentrated strike aimed directly at Earth's last bastion of resistance. "This is your final chance," the soldier said, their tone unwavering. "You must strike now, before they can unleash their full strength. Take out their leadership, disrupt their command, and the rest will fall." Harrison studied the map, her mind racing. The alien fleet had concentrated its strongest forces around a central command ship, which coordinated the entire invasion. If they could destroy it, they would cripple the enemy's ability to respond. But the ship was heavily guarded, its defenses nearly impenetrable. It was a suicide mission for any human soldier brave enough to attempt it. But with the Raytheon's guidance, it seemed possible. If they struck with overwhelming force, swift, coordinated, and brutal, they might have a chance. Harrison felt a fire burn in her chest. She looked at the soldiers around her, those who had fought and bled for years. They were all in this together now, no longer just survivors but fighters, determined to reclaim their world. "Gather the troops," Harrison said, her voice rising with newfound resolve. "We hit them hard. We hit them fast. The alien command ship is our target. We take it down or die trying." As the soldiers rallied, readying their weapons and preparing for the assault, the tension in the air was palpable. Harrison could see the same determination in their eyes that had fueled humanity's resistance for so long. They had been pushed to the brink, but now they had a chance. A real chance to win. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of," Harrison said, her voice firm and resolute. "We will take our world back." The final battle had begun, and for the first time, it wasn't just a desperate struggle for survival. It was a fight for victory. The human forces, fueled by the hope that had been reignited in their hearts, began to mobilize for the most daring operation of the war. General Harrison's strategy was clear. Strike fast, hit the alien command ship where it would hurt the most, and disrupt their entire invasion fleet. The Raytheon had given them invaluable intel, pinpointing the command ship's location, but it was still heavily protected. It was a suicide mission for any conventional force, but with the guidance of the Raytheon soldiers, the humans might just stand a chance. "Everyone knows their role," Harrison said as she stood before her soldiers, her voice resolute. The battlefield had transformed into a perfect storm of tension and anticipation. "We move out in 5 minutes. Once we're in position, there will be no turning back." The soldiers nodded, their faces set with determination. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future of their species, for their children, for their homes. Earth had been on the brink of annihilation for far too long, but now they had a chance to tip the scales. Behind Harrison, the Raytheon soldiers moved with their usual efficiency, preparing their advanced equipment. Their armor gleamed in the dim light, and their weapons hummed with deadly energy. It was clear that these warriors were not merely reinforcements. They were the vanguard of humanity's final offensive. As the clock ticked down, the humans took their positions. Each squad, each platoon, had a specific role to play in the assault. Some would provide cover fire, others would infiltrate the enemy's defenses, and a select group of elite soldiers would be tasked with breaching the alien command ship itself. The alien fleet, unaware of the imminent attack, was still focused on launching their final strike against Earth's last stronghold. Their ships hovered in the sky, massive and imposing, while their ground forces prepared for the final push to crush the human resistance once and for all. But they had no idea that the tide was about to turn. The first wave of human forces, supported by Raytheon combatants, struck with the force of a storm. The alien defenses, previously thought impenetrable, were quickly overwhelmed by the humans' surprise tactics. Small, mobile strike teams darted through the alien ranks, laying waste to their weapons caches and communication hubs. The Raytheon soldiers moved like ghosts, their black armor blending into the night as they cut down alien soldiers with brutal efficiency. Every movement was precise, every strike fatal. Harrison's squad, along with a few hand-picked Raytheon soldiers, was headed directly for the heart of the alien operation. The command ship. It was their most dangerous target, and it would take every ounce of strength and cunning to breach its defenses. As they moved closer, Harrison's mind raced. She knew this was their only shot. The only chance humanity had to strike at the heart of the alien invaders and disrupt their entire campaign. If they failed, all would be lost. As they neared the alien stronghold, the ground began to tremble under the weight of heavy fire. The alien forces had realized what was happening, and they were responding in full force. A barrage of enemy fire erupted around them, and the sky above lit up with explosions as alien ships retaliated against the human assault. "We're almost there," one of the Raytheon soldiers shouted over the comms, their voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Push forward." Harrison's grip tightened on her rifle. She could hear the frantic shouts of soldiers around her, the blasts of energy weapons, the roar of alien ships in the distance. But in the midst of the chaos, there was only one thought in her mind. They had to reach the command ship. As they approached the heavily fortified structure, a series of alien warships descended from the sky, their engines roaring as they prepared to bombard the human forces. But the Raytheon had anticipated this. A small fleet of Raytheon ships swooped in from behind, engaging the alien forces in a blistering dogfight. Laser beams and energy blasts streaked across the sky as the Raytheon fighters danced through the alien ships, taking them down one by one. "Go, go, go," Harrison shouted as she and her team sprinted toward the alien command ship, dodging incoming fire. The alien defenses were fierce, but they were distracted, and that was all the humans needed. The ground trembled as the final barrier between them and the command ship's entrance was obliterated by a well-placed explosion from one of the Raytheon soldiers. The way was clear. "Breaching the ship in 5, one of Harrison's officers reported. The team moved forward, weapons at the ready. As they breached the command ship's outer door, the interior was chaos. Alien soldiers scrambled to respond, but they were no match for the combination of Raytheon technology and human ingenuity. The first few enemies fell quickly, their bodies crumpling as the human soldiers and their alien allies pressed forward. Harrison's heart pounded in her chest. They were inside. The core of the alien operation was within reach. Now, the real battle would begin. The sound of boots echoing in the dark corridors of the alien command ship was the only noise Harrison and her squad could hear. The thick, metallic walls seemed to hum with an eerie, almost oppressive energy. The air was thick with the stench of ozone and the burning remnants of alien soldiers who had fallen to the Raytheon and human assault. Every step felt heavier than the last, every movement more calculated. They were no longer simply fighting for survival. They were here to end it all. "Stay sharp," Harrison ordered, her voice low but commanding. Her eyes darted between the dimly lit hallway and the dark alcoves that seemed to stretch endlessly into the ship's depths. The alien command ship was an enormous, labyrinthine structure, and they had no idea where the heart of its operations was located. The human and Raytheon forces moved with a single purpose. Their task was clear: find and destroy the command core of the ship, the neural hub that controlled the alien fleet's movements. If they succeeded, the entire invasion would fall apart. Without their command structure, the alien forces would be rudderless, vulnerable to a full collapse. At the front of the group, a Raytheon soldier led the way. Their every step was deliberate, their posture like a predator on the hunt. Harrison admired the soldier's focus. The Raytheon had always seemed to be a step ahead, as though they had anticipated every move the aliens could make. They were a mystery, a puzzle that Harrison wasn't sure she could ever solve. But one thing was certain: without their help, humanity would have been doomed. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered, casting long shadows across the narrow passage. The hum of the ship grew louder, a low vibrating pulse that seemed to resonate with the very core of the vessel. Harrison felt a strange chill creep down her spine. This ship, this alien monstrosity, was alive in its own twisted way. It had been designed for one purpose: to subdue, conquer, and erase anything that stood in its path. "We're close," one of the Raytheon soldiers muttered. Their voice was barely audible, their focus unwavering. They had reached the central access point, the heart of the ship. A massive door stood before them, sleek and metallic, with strange symbols etched into its surface. It was clearly designed to keep intruders out. Harrison stepped forward. "This is it," she said, voice steady but full of intent. "Once we go through this door, there's no turning back." The Raytheon soldiers exchanged looks before nodding. They had already committed to this mission. Humanity's last hope rested on the success of this strike. Harrison turned to her squad. "Prepare yourselves." With a silent motion, the Raytheon soldier approached the massive door and placed a small device against the surface. There was a quiet click, followed by a sudden hiss as the door began to open. A wave of cold air rushed out from the inside, accompanied by a strange, high-pitched noise that sent a shiver through the human soldiers. As the door creaked open, Harrison motioned for her team to advance. They moved swiftly into the vast, glowing chamber beyond. The command core, a gigantic structure of pulsating energy and intricate alien technology, stood in the center of the room. It was a spectacle, an enormous spherical array of shifting lights and patterns, held together by a web of cables and strange alien materials. It pulsed with unnatural life, and Harrison knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that this was the beating heart of the alien fleet. The Raytheon soldiers immediately set to work, positioning themselves around the core. They began to deploy their technology, small, efficient devices designed to disrupt the alien systems. A soft hum filled the air as the devices activated, sending ripples of energy through the chamber. The Raytheon soldiers worked with mechanical precision, each move deliberate and calculated. "This is it," Harrison said, her voice tight. "We destroy this core, and the entire alien invasion will collapse." Just as they were about to initiate the final step, the air in the room suddenly changed. The hum grew louder, sharper. The command core reacted to the Raytheon devices, and for a moment, Harrison thought they might have failed. Then, an explosion of light and sound erupted from the center of the room. The walls shuddered, and the alien technology seemed to writhe in pain as the energy from the Raytheon devices began to break through its defenses. "Get clear," Harrison shouted. The human soldiers scrambled back, ducking behind cover as a wave of raw energy surged outward. The room trembled violently, the floor cracking beneath their feet as the core's defense mechanisms activated. Alien shrieks echoed from the depths of the ship, and Harrison knew they had triggered something far worse than they had anticipated. "We need to finish it," one of the Raytheon soldiers shouted. Now, the Raytheon soldiers poured everything they had into the core. A final, coordinated strike sent a pulse of energy that ripped through the alien defense systems. For a heartbeat, the entire ship seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a deafening explosion, the core imploded, sending shockwaves through the ship. The alien command center groaned, and the ship's lights flickered out. "We did it," Harrison said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and triumph. The ship was crumbling, its systems collapsing. The battle was won. The explosion shook the alien command ship to its very core, sending tremors through its vast structure. The walls buckled and groaned as the once impenetrable fortress began to fall apart. A cascade of sparks and debris rained down from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the acrid scent of burning metal and ozone. The ship was dying, its life support systems failing as the heart of its operations, the neural command core collapsed into oblivion. "Move, move, move," General Harrison shouted, pulling her squad to their feet as the ship continued to shudder. They had done it. The alien invasion was on the brink of total collapse. But the job wasn't finished yet. The command ship was going down, and they had to get out. Fast. As the squad sprinted down the narrow corridors, the ship's artificial gravity systems flickered, causing the soldiers to stumble momentarily. The lights were dimming, and emergency sirens blared as the ship's hull began to rupture. But despite the chaos, Harrison felt a sense of victory surging through her veins. They had struck at the heart of the alien invasion, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, it seemed like humanity could finally see a path to freedom. The Raytheon soldiers moved with uncanny speed, guiding the human forces through the increasingly unstable ship. Their movements were precise, calculated, a stark contrast to the frantic pace of the human resistance. They had no doubt about their mission, no fear of the destruction closing in around them. They were warriors, born for this, and they would lead the humans to safety. "We're almost there," one of the Raytheon soldiers said, their voice steady as they navigated the wreckage. "Just a few more minutes." But even as the escape seemed within reach, the ship wasn't done fighting back. Alien forces, scattered throughout the vessel, were beginning to regroup, desperate to defend their final stronghold. Alien soldiers poured from hidden compartments, their weapons aimed at the retreating humans. They had no choice but to make one last stand. "Get to the hangar," Harrison barked, pushing forward with all the strength she could muster. "We hold them off for as long as we can." The human forces dug in, setting up defensive positions in the narrowing corridors. The alien soldiers, though weakened, fought with the ferocity of creatures backed into a corner. The Raytheon soldiers fought alongside the humans, their advanced weapons cutting down the alien forces with ruthless efficiency. But the clock was ticking, the ship was dying, and time was running out. "Harrison, we've got incoming reinforcements," Novik called out, his voice tinged with urgency. "More ships, too many." Harrison's heart skipped a beat. Just as they thought they were getting the upper hand, the alien reinforcements began to arrive. Massive warships, their dark silhouettes cutting through the wreckage of the command ship like harbingers of doom. Their weapons opened fire, and explosions rocked the already failing vessel. But the humans were not giving up. With each passing moment, they fought harder, driven by a singular purpose: to protect their world and ensure that their species would survive. The Raytheon soldiers, despite their otherworldly power, were not immune to the onslaught. A few were caught in the crossfire, but they pushed on, leading the humans toward the hangar. "We're almost there," Harrison shouted over the blaring alarms. Finally, they'd reached the ship's hangar bay. The escape shuttles were already prepared, their engines humming with life. The human forces rushed aboard, the soldiers clambering into the craft as quickly as they could, knowing the alien warships were closing in fast. Harrison turned to the Raytheon leader, who was overseeing the final retreat. "Get the remaining forces out of here. We've done it. The alien invasion is over." The Raytheon soldier gave a nod, their helmet gleaming in the dim light of the hangar. "This is not the end, General Harrison," the soldier said. "It is merely the beginning. The invasion has been stopped, but there will be others. You must be prepared." Harrison nodded grimly. "We will be. Earth will be ready." With that, the last of the human soldiers boarded the ships. The engines roared to life, and the crafts lifted off from a hangar bay just as the alien warships bore down on them. The final shots rang out as the escape shuttle zoomed toward the open sky, the last remnants of the alien command ship disintegrating behind them in a burst of flame and light. As the humans escaped into the atmosphere, they watched in awe as the alien ships, caught in the collapse of their own fleet, exploded in a fiery chain reaction. The alien forces were vanquished, their invasion halted before it could fully succeed. Earth had been saved. In the distance, the shimmering forms of Raytheon ships washed over the fleeing humans, their mission complete. But the soldiers knew this victory was only temporary. There would be other battles to fight. There would be new enemies. But for now, they had accomplished what once seemed impossible. And for the first time in a long while, Harrison allowed herself to breathe a sigh of relief. Humanity had fought back. They had prevailed.